the ceremony today is all about. So at this time, the military is getting ready. The Guard of Honor is getting ready. We've already witnessed some of the dignitaries entering the Senate. And
then the arrival of the Governor General, Her Excellency Dame Sandra Mason. And once she has alighted from her car and had been received by the Chief of Staff and the Commissioner of Police, should be invited to inspect the Guard of Honor. Then she will move into the Senate chamber to deliver the official throne speech, thus starting the start of the 2018 parliamentary session.
It's a lot of pomp and pageantry, and many people, you know, love to sit and watch all of the organs of government. They love to watch the military. Now, what role does the military play when it comes to events such as these? Because 300 years ago, there was no ISIS, there was no Muslim Brotherhood. Plans have to change now, and how has the military changed?
Well, the Barbados Regiment, which is a unit within the Barbados Defence Force, was formed in 1902, and they took over from the British, who were based at the Garrison Savannah. And with the formation of the Barbados Defence Force in 1979, its primary role is to assist the civil powers, and the civil powers being the police. However, the Barbados Defence Force other role is that of ceremonial, and hence you will have the parade this morning being done under the command of the Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defence Force.
Yes. So as we look around here, we notice that some of the Barbadians are gathering. They all want to be a part of this historic event. It is, of course, an event which will see the first female Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honourable Mia Amor Motley, and we will see of course, in the Senate, there is the Chief Education Officer, Karen Best. We have the Director of Public Prosecutions, who is also female, and I think it is a good year for the female gender, definitely. But at 9:30-ish, we say ish, but the military always sticks to, you say 09:30?
09:30 hours, the ceremonial Guard of Honor, led by the band of the Royal Barbados Police Force, should arrive in Heroes Square. They will settle down and await the first arrival, that being the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Tyrone Griffith, and the Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defence Force, Colonel Glenn Sinatra Branham.
Yes, and actually that is what will be happening militarily, but within the Senate, there will be actually choosing their President of the Senate, Sir Richard Cheltenham, and we understand that Pat Paris is arriving. She has just arrived. We've seen a number of permanent secretaries of the various ministries arriving already this morning, and the members of the House should be within the House of Parliament, the lower house, getting ready to be called to the Senate. We've also seen the arrival of the chaplain of the House of Assembly, and many people not keeping Barbadian time, they're actually being on time today. It's very critical. It has to move with precision.
Correct. Part of the ceremony this morning also is a procession led by the Marshal with the mace and in his robe, leading the parliamentarians into the Senate for the delivery of the throne speech. And the mace is very rich in history.
And actually, Cheryl has some information on that mace, which he will share with you a little later on. Some tradition as well, the Speaker's chair was a gift to Barbados for independence.
Correct.
And it was a gift from India.
It's a very beautiful chair.
Beautiful chair.
I must admit.
Yes. And there will be a new Speaker of the House today. The House, as a matter of fact, will be electing His Honour Alfred Holder. So that's something that we will be looking forward to as well. But we did mention that the Senate will be electing their president, and that will be His Honour Sir Richard Cheltenham, who is a past parliamentarian as well. So yes, steeped in lots of history and also steeped in experience.
Certainly.
Definitely.
And of interest is the various speakers of the House of Assembly.
Actually, there's the arrival of the Attorney General, the Honourable Dale Marshall, at the moment.
Yes, the various speakers of the House of Assembly over the years, and also in the past it would have been the President of the Legislative Council, and then the Senate took over. I think it was in 1964, and we then had our speakers from then on. The President, in fact, of the Senate from then on till now. And in going through my list, I was able to see a number of presidents of the Senate who would have served in the Legislative Council and also in the Senate.
Yes, but if you know as well, you know, you speak of the senators, but one of the interesting things about Parliament and history, now, yes, we have 30 constituencies within Parliament, but there were 28 at one time.
Yes. At one stage, there were also 24.
There were yes, exactly. And they started out with 6 parishes, you know? 6 parishes only, the older parishes, we call them. Today, joining our broadcast will be the Constitutional Attorney at Law, past Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly, Mr. Ezra Aline. And we're going to be welcoming Ezra to our broadcast in just a short while. And we just saw there Stella Lady St. John, and here we see new independent senator, Senator Monique Tate, and she's escorted by her brother, that's Branford Tate Jr. And it's nice to see them both there, keeping the family name alive and its gift of service to Barbados. And a little earlier we saw Stella Lady St. John, another name, of course, which the family has given of their time and of themselves to this country, Barbados. Today will be a special day for many, many people, and they've been given the opportunity to witness. They actually have seats around Parliament today where they will be able to see exactly what's going on. We see members of the Labour fraternity. We see other members of the judicial fraternity. And as I mentioned, we saw a number of parliamentary secretaries, and we've seen some of the members of the various ministries in Parliament. And we say good morning to you, Ezra.
Good morning to you, Peter.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This, we've been saying, is a historic day for many reasons. Perhaps we have not touched on all. Would you like to share a few?
We have a female Governor General and a female Prime Minister. I think that's very important because democracy and Parliament was at one time the exclusive preserve of the males.
Yes.
And indeed the exclusive preserve of a few males.
Those who were landed.
Absolutely. Our democracy is broadened down to the extent where any citizen of this country can aspire to the top positions in this country. And that is good for the democracy which we practice.
Yes. There we see Monsignor Vincent, and as I said, members of the judiciary, past and present. That, of course, is Lady McCormack.
Yes. And I believe it's her daughter.
And yes, I'm trying to, she's facing away from me at the moment, so I was trying to see if I could see her face. But members of all branches of government will be here today. Ezra, we mentioned that the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Assembly will be elected during this time before the actual ceremony starts. What takes place there?
Well, those events are of major significance. This occasion is not simply an occasion of pomp and pageantry and so on. It is also a restatement of the fundamental power of the people dispersed in the hands of the Prime Minister and also in the hands of Her Excellency the Governor General. That the power comes from the people. And when we select the President of the Senate, we are in effect recognizing that these persons who are now to be placed in these positions are in temporary power.
Sorry, we just missed Denise Nurse from the Child Care Board entering, and here is the Governor of the Central Bank and the Chief of Protocol following shortly behind. Today is going to be a rather busy day for him as well.
And the significance of all this is that everything has to fit into a particular pattern.
Yes. So we're in the House of Parliament, for example, and we have to choose a speaker. Well, we were given an idea from the Honourable Mia Motley of whom she would choose. And what happens then?
Well, somebody's got to preside, because at this stage there is no speaker to preside over Parliament. So the Clerk of Parliament will preside and over the election of a speaker. Speaker's job is a reluctant job in many respects. Early historical days, he could lose his head.
Oh!
When he reported back to the king whatever it is that the parliamentarian said. He spoke to the king about the goings on, the deliberations in Parliament. And he could lose his head if the king was displeased with the reports that came back from a recalcitrant Parliament. And therefore today you will see the Speaker reluctantly assuming the position and seeking the approval of the modern day equivalent of the king, Her Excellency the Governor General, because until she approves him, he is only the Speaker-elect. So there's a great deal of significant history there.
All right. Well, that is certainly an interesting exercise. I didn't realize that one could lose one's head.
One could lose one's head, yes.
Okay. And there is there's another tradition that will happen a little later, which I always find somewhat amusing. And I will ask you about this is one of the new senators here. And what I was going to say was when the sergeant-at-arms knocks on the door and he's not allowed in, and I would love that story a little later. I find it truly fascinating.
Truly fascinating, absolutely important.
Yes.
We cannot proceed today unless that ritual is honored in fact and in deed.
Well, the chaplain is in place in the lower house at the moment. And since we're in the new area of, 29-1, it would have been 30-0, but now we have a leader of the opposition. How will they be seated? How will they be placed? As usual, the government on the right side of the speaker?
Yes, but at this stage, there is no speaker, in addition to which the configuration is bound to be strange.
Yes.
Because, I don't know, perhaps you'll see 29-1 or 28-1.
Yes. So this is interesting. It's nice that we see what it looks like, the before, and then we will see a little later on the after. But the chaplain is there, and he is ready.
The thing about Parliament...
Within, and we see another senator entering the compound behind Professor Eugene Baratow. And we also see our Minister of Information, Senator Moe, and her mum, Mrs. Moe. And here we see Senator the Honourable Jerome Walcott. And they're all arriving around this time. There we have Minister Moe, who was, of course, sworn in last weekend, and her mother. And behind them, we see the ever-busy Clerk of Parliament, Pedro Eastman. Yes. This is the time now when everyone's going to be arriving and getting into place. We see members of the diplomatic corps. And you wonder sometimes what they're thinking when seated there, you know, in terms of 370 years uninterrupted. I think the important word there is uninterrupted.
And these walls have been a consistent witness to that history.
Wouldn't you love to be a fly on these walls?
I would love to be able to make the walls speak because they would have a complete history of the development of our parliamentary institutions ever since then. They have been witnesses to some of the great speeches, some of the epic constitutional battles to bring that democracy from the preserve of the exclusive few into the province of the many.
I think that what some people might have liked was when they started the timed speeches. But could you imagine the speeches which were done without any timing, that you spoke from your heart for hours on end?
You spoke from your heart, you spoke from a collection of your heart and your head and your knowledge of history and your conviction that what you were saying was a cause to and a means to an end, to lift the burden and bondage of oppression from the masses and to make the country a better place.
Here we see the senators arriving. We see the Honourable Lucille Moe and her mum, Mrs. Moe, and we see Dr. Crystal Haynes. Very nice. These, of course, are faces that you will be seeing and getting to know over the course of time. I'm sure that there is going to be some excellent debate in the Senate and in the House of Assembly.
Excellent debates from a generation for the future in many respects. They're going to take the country forward by their speeches, by their actions, by their opinions.
And yet being under the wing of those who've been there before.
Precisely.
And that is also of importance when we know that a lot of the parliamentarians are young.
Absolutely,
Yes, and our young people should try to emulate them in all good respect.
I agree with you.
And certainly learn from them and strive for excellence in all they do.
And yes, some of them have experience, but some of them have double experience in areas which heretofore you might never have really thought of, people like urban planning and that sort of thing, which I find thoroughly refreshing. So,
But you see, this is a new country in very many ways. In fact, this is a new world.
this is why they're saying it's historic.
Yeah. And
Certainly.
these events all cast a message to the young, as my friend was saying, because young people must not see these as mere pageantry. These events are examples of what we can do through hard work, through reason, and through the ballot, as opposed to any other method of getting to the top.
Yes.
Certainly. Of interest, we mentioned the speakers of the Barbados House of Assembly, and our first speaker was elected in 1652 from my records, but Parliament was established in 1639. So between 1639 and 1652, who would have taken the lead as speaker of the House of Assembly?
We might not have had a developed
There we see
institution
the
of
Honourable
speaker.
Ralph arriving, and Madam Justice Jackie Cornelius, and his daughter Tony
yeah.
Thorne. So it's the Thorne family. 2 generations of it coming into Parliament Yard.
You know, in the initial, way back in the early days of these institutions, and I'm dealing with the point of the speaker, you know, the king himself initially presided, and when they pushed him out, then we developed the office of speaker. So I suspect in the early days, we might have had an official looking after that early collection of burgesses called the Parliament. But once we got into the Charter of Oistins and the battles and so on, we formalized the institutions, and speakers are extraordinarily important.
What was the first building that Parliament met in? As Redux's head?
Yes. Parliamentarians
It
have
was
the-
a tavern,
Yes.
wasn't it?
And that's why I ducked my head, because parliamentarians have this tradition of including libations
Yes.
when they proceed. In fact, in the House of Commons, there is a bar. And I
Yes.
believe here we have made...
You believe.
Yes, we've made provision. In fact...
It's a difficult job, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, quite.
You don't know how fickle it is. The Speaker of this place, when I was Deputy Speaker, always received a daily gift of spirit.
Okay.
Yes. 2 bottles of whiskey delivered to his office every...
And here we have the father of the Prime Minister. Mr. Elliot Motley, and I'm sure he is accompanied by Mrs. Motley, but knowing how social she is, that she's left him behind, I do believe. Yes. Yes. But that's Mr. Elliot Motley. And is that Elan, their daughter?
Yes, that is...
Yes.
I had the honor of teaching most of their students at the law faculty,
Yes.
particularly Elan, who's an extraordinarily charming young lady.
Yes.
Mrs. Motley, of course, is an extremely sociable person.
Yes, she is.
And a very hard-working...
There she is.
Yes, there she is. She's constantly working
Yes.
on her...
I'm sure that this must be such a wonderful moment for her and for their family.
Yeah. I don't think she missed a single event in the
No.
campaigns. Not
And
only
she
this
has-
year, but in the years past.
She has been a true mother, you know.
A
She's
true rock of Gibraltar.
and she has been there through thick and thin.
If she saw me on 10 occasions, 9.5, she was discussing politics
Yes.
and the betterment of the country, things of that sort. Deeply knowledgeable about the politics of this place.
Yes.
And she hasn't lost one bit of her human touch.
And there we have Tony Thorne,
Yeah.
another proud family member,
Indeed, a budding entrepreneur.
very
in her
proud
own
of her
right,
dad, Ralph Thorne,
and making her own way as a young
a
person,
young entrepreneur, definitely.
pushing envelopes that are already open and doing the right thing.
Quite right. Madam Justice Jacqueline Cornelius. Mr. and Mrs. Motley.
Mr. Valton Ben.
Yeah.
Yes. And as I said, members
Of the
of the
judiciary.
judiciary.
Justice of Appeal Goodrich.
Yes,
Justice
yes.
of Appeal Reefer.
Justices of the appeal.
Extremely important that we recognize that the powers of the state are present
Yes.
on this major constitutional
The Honourable
occasion.
See Minister
Edmund
Edmund
Hinkson,
Hinkson
Minister of
and
Foreign
Mrs.
Affairs.
Hinkson.
Minister of Home Affairs.
That's
Minister of
Beverly
Home Affairs,
Hinkson.
yes.
That's a beautiful
He is a
white
seasoned-
dress that Mrs. Hinkson is wearing.
Minister Hinkson is a talented young politician, interested in politics from very, very young. I've known him from the age of 10.
And I must also say that as a member of the Lions Club of Bridgetown,
Hard worker.
a very hard worker,
Extraordinary.
and is very interested in the differently abled community. Does
Absolutely.
a lot of work for them. And I
He's
must
going to
compliment
be the
him.
Minister of Home Affairs.
Home Affairs.
He's the Minister of Home Affairs. And it's interesting that Home Affairs has nothing else aligned with it
Yeah.
because it's such a big job.
But what has happened on this occasion, particularly as we speak about Home Affairs, is that it's been separated from the Office of the Attorney General. Now, that's a key situation because the Attorney General has a duty.
There's Mrs. Hinkson.
Yeah. Attorney General has the duty to advise.
That's Mr. Odell.
Yeah.
Yes. Lovely.
Again, Mr. Allen, I'm checking my notes.
Yeah.
I noticed that His Honour Sir John
That's
Eustace Theodore
Mrs. Cheryl
Branniger.
Bennett Innes. That's the lady who is critical to the movement
Movement of
of
traffic.
traffic on the roads. You see other members of the public, family members as well. And security, as one would expect, is rather
Yes.
tight.
It is tighter than tight.
Tighter, yes, with
It's
so
the
many
times in which we live.
parliamentarians
I've never seen it
assembled
like
in one place. There must be a sense of security. And apart from the members of the Royal Barbados Police Force, they're also members of the government security yard
Yes.
and the members of the Barbados Fire Service.
Absolutely.
Also playing their part to ensure that everything is safe.
And there are those members of the security services that you merely suspect by face. You can't tell who they are, but they're on the job.
Yes.
Yes.
They would have been on the job from very early this morning.
Cheryl, at this time, I believe that the Guard of
The
Honor
Guard
should
of
be
Honor
on.
at the present moment, and they should be steady in Hero Square by 09:45 hours.
Hero Square itself is a square steeped in history.
Yes, the current name was officially took effect from the 28th of April 1999, and before it was known as Trafalgar Square. And some of the features, you have the statue of Admiral Lord Nelson. There's also the water fountain.
That's the acting chief medical officer,
That was
Dr.
built
George.
1865 to commemorate the introduction of piped water into Bridgetown on the 29th of March 1861. And then there's Parliament Building, which is also a part of Heroes Square.
The cenotaph as well.
Cenotaph, dedicated to those who gave of their life during the various world wars.
World War One and Two.
Major Louis Bell, former adjutant of the Barbados Defense
Yes.
Force and a member of the Royal Commonwealth Society of Barbados. The senator.
We see the arrival of His Honour Sir Marson Gibson, Chief Justice of Barbados, and he's greeted by the Chief of Protocol, Mr. Philip St. Hill.
At this present moment, we can hear the sound of the Royal Barbados Police Force Band as it leads the Guard of Honor into Heroes Square.
Yes, Dr. George is now entering the Senate chamber. It's interesting how it's laid out at the moment. All of the beautiful stained glass windows, each with the insignia
Yes.
and crests of many of the governors of Barbados. The Chief Justice is escorted now into the chamber. And we
And
see
they're
the
very
arrival of the Prime Minister of Barbados, the
Accompanied
Honourable
by-
Mia Amor Motley.
Accompanied by her aide-de-camp, Captain Gail Morgan.
And she receives a bouquet of flowers. This is something she's going to have to get accustomed to,
Yes.
the adoration of her crowd. And we see shortly behind
personal assistant.
her personal aide, yes, Jessica Odell Barriel.
The Honourable Prime Minister and her aide-de-camp now making their way into Parliament, accompanied by their security officer. And being led by Chief of Protocol, Mr. Philip St. Hill.
Yes.
A truly historic moment, eh? First female Prime Minister ascends the steps of Parliament.
Yes.
Another historic moment indeed.
Absolutely.
How does it make you feel, Ezra? You've been involved in politics for so long. Did you ever think this day would arrive?
I'm not sure I thought it would arrive. I thought that if we continued to develop the country and the democracy in the way in which we were doing, that is to say, giving...
There we see Elizabeth Thompson, one of the vibrant spokespersons for the party.
Once we were giving everyone the right to vote,
It was only a matter of time.
yes, and especially promoting qualified females to top ministerial positions, then it was only a matter of time. Provided you got a female who represented the kind of qualities desirable of a leader and a prime minister, she would fight her way through the system and get to the top, because you have to do that to be a prime minister.
Yes. And fight for her people,
Oh, yes.
I do believe. That's something that
It comes from within.
within.
Yeah. That's why we talk of conviction politicians, politicians who are convicted in their views and believe in the cause of lifting their people up.
Yes.
You can't shirk from it.
Your parade commander at this moment is biting his nails because we're behind in time.
I wouldn't really say that.
No?
The military is never behind in time.
I do beg your pardon.
Everything is always to timings.
Yeah.
And that is why the rehearsal was done on Sunday morning.
Because I can hear the police
You
band
can
in
hear
the
it now,
distance.
yes. But the rehearsals were done on Sunday morning to go with the timings for this morning, as opposed to do it at 8 o'clock. They did it at, they were steady in Hero Square for 0940.
Yeah.
I know this might not be of interest to you gentlemen, but to the ladies watching, are you all noticing that fascinators are making an appearance once again? Yes,
You know, Peter,
for sure.
you must not assume that males are not as fashion conscious as ladies are. I am absolutely fascinated by fascinators.
Stand by for the music. Just let it
Right.
play. Chiral is, having a grand time. I wish that you could see him as he listens to that music. Yes.
Yes, the band of the Royal Barbados
Police force,
and,
like none other.
Inspector David Codrington, drum major, leading the band into the square. And once they settle, Superintendent Andrew Lynch, the director of music, will take command of the band. This morning's parade is under the command of Major Jewel Greenwich. He is the second in command of the Barbados Regiment, and the conducting warrant officer is the RSM of the Barbados Regiment, WO1 Adrian Lopez. And he's the one that would have been responsible to ensuring that all the men and women on this ceremonial guard are well rehearsed and ready for the parade this morning.
Oh, yes, they are looking rather sharp this
Very
morning.
sharp in their uniform and
Yes.
in their forage caps. And you can see those with the red sash. There are senior NCOs within the Barbados Defence Force. The drum major is wearing a blue base sash, signifying that he is not a senior NCO in any of the ranks of the Royal Barbados Defence Force, but just short of being a gazetted officer in the police force. And that is why he wears his sash belt around his waist, whereas senior NCOs wear their sash from the right shoulder to the left hip.
Yes.
And the sash is scarlet red, signifying blood, because in the war they would have been used as stretcher bearers.
I see.
That is why the guard commander for this guard is coming around now is Captain Adrian Boyce. As he passed the colors, he will pay compliments by looking over to his right. And the second in command of the guard, the subaltern, is Lieutenant David Adamson.
For those who might not have heard any of our broadcasts, because we like to, educate and inform, the colors.
The colors. The colors represent the symbol of a unit. This morning on parade, you will see the Queen's color and the regimental color. The Queen's color is there to represent the sovereign. If Her Excellency the Governor General was not going on parade, then the Queen's color would not be there.
Okay.
Once Her Excellency the Governor General is on parade, or any member of the royal family for that matter, then the Queen's color is brought up. And the regimental color represents the Barbados Regiment. Colors are symbolic now, but they have their time in history. In the days of war, they were carried to battle, and they were used as a rallying point in battle. In fact, the regiment had its own synonymous call, known as the Hunter's Call. And wherever you are and you hear that piece of music being played, you know the Barbados Regiment is around.
My goodness, that must really and truthfully, inspire
Yes, I remember in
all kinds of
1987
pride.
when we had the 21st anniversary of independence and we had our parade. We had the Jamaica Defence Force Band, the Royal Anglo Regiment Band, and there were one or two other bands on parade. But when the colours of the Barbados Regiment were approaching Sedan's Fort, they struck up the Hunter's Call, and everybody knew that the regiment was entering the gates of Sedan's Fort.
Okay, let's listen to the parade commander.
Right. At the present moment, the conducting warrant officer is now dressing the parade, that is ensuring that everybody is covering off from front to rear and from side to side in one straight line.
Okay.
And he now takes up his position now in the rear of the parade. And,
Let's go.
Commander brings the parade to attention, and we await the arrival of the Commissioner of Police and the Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defence Force. 101, the Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defence Force, Colonel Glenn Granham, and he'll be accompanied by his aide-de-camp, Captain Sean Broom, and the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Tyrone Griffith, and he will be accompanied by his aide-de-camp, Inspector Sonia Boyce. To the best of my knowledge, this is just about the first time that a female is performing the duties of ADC to the Commissioner of Police.
A lot of firsts. Today is a historic day. Excellent. How does one receive that honor?
I would say that it is published by the adjutant. In the case of the Barbados Defence Force, by the adjutant, that you will perform the duties
I see.
of aide-de-camp. The parade commander pays compliments by saluting with his sword. The Chief of Staff and the Commissioner of Police have acknowledged, and they're now awaiting, the parade is now awaiting the arrival of Her Excellency, the Governor General, Dame Sandra Mason.
So there's going to be a little wait here
Yes.
before we actually see the horses make their
Yes.
arrival, the
She
mounted
actually
troop.
arrives at 1000 hours.
Yes.
With her mounted troop, drawn from the mounted troop of the Royal Barbados Police Force, under the command of Station Sergeant Andrew Waltz.
We had an interesting chat, I think, about, and you're going quite right to time. So that's good to see.
That is good to see.
And if you don't see that, some funds into a little tip jar, I would
Somebody will
assume.
pay the price. There's always a belly invested around.
Yes, quite.
You know,
Members of the social partnership are here as well.
U.S. Ambassador to Barbados.
We see, and there we have a lovely
Lovely view of the band.
view of the Royal Barbados Police Force Band. They've brought us such pride over the
Certainly.
years, and they continue to do so. We were talking about the Barbadian Hunter's Call.
Yes.
who came up with the call? Was it-
That call, piece of music was arranged by John Ash, who was then director of music out of England
I see.
and attached to the Barbados Regiment. As I said earlier, the regiment was formed in 1902 when the British garrison had left. And in 1940, at that time, it was known as the Barbados Volunteer Force. In 1948, the name was changed to the Barbados Regiment. And in 1979, with the formation of the Barbados Defence Force, the regiment became a unit within the
We
Barbados
see
Defence
the
Force.
arrival of Minister Cynthia
Cynthia
Ford.
Ford.
She's the representative, of course, for the parish of St. Thomas.
Senator, the Honourable Senator, the Reverend Michael Maxwell,
Michael Maxwell just arrived.
rector of the Holy Trinity Anglican Church,
Yes.
and formerly rector at St. Jude's Anglican Church.
And
St.
that's
George.
Dr. Sonia.
So,
Dr. Sonia Ford. And we await the arrival of Her Excellency. Her Excellency Dame Sandra Mason.
police band have played a fanfare signaling her arrival into Heroes Square.
And here come
This
the
morning,
mounted
she will
troop,
be accompanied by her aide-de-camp,
Julia Dabreo.
Major
Julia
Julia
Dabreo.
and she will be met by the Chief of Staff and the Commissioner of Police and escorted to the saluting dais where she will receive a royal salute. On parades of this nature, there are two types of salutes. You get a general salute and a royal salute. But a royal salute is always for royalty when the colors are lowered to the ground and the national anthem is played.
And as the Vice Regent, we will get the royal salute today, won't we?
Yes. This is now part of the rear escort for Her Excellency the Governor General. The two stick orderlies now march off parade. And Her Excellency stands on the dais.
Salute! Freeze!
State of parade, that is tell her exactly how many people are on parade, inclusive of the colors and the band of the Royal Barbados Police Force, and invite her to inspect the Guard of Honor.
Morning, Excellency. I have 05 174.
You may very well ask what is he saying. No. People have gone forward and said, good morning, ma'am.
Okay, we've been trying, but perhaps you might tell us what he's telling her.
Yes, he would go forward. He would say, good morning, ma'am. I am Major Joel Greenwich, Parade Commander for the State Opening of Parliament. The parade consists of 2 officers, 1 senior warrant officer, 104 other ranks drawn from the Barbados Defence Force and the band of the Royal Barbados with all the Barbados Police Force at the open order and awaiting the pleasure of your inspection, ma'am. That is exactly what you're for. Notice that the parade commander is always in step. The senior person, always in step. And you will also know that he slightly switched his position. The senior person is always on the right, but for this occasion, as the guard is being inspected, the senior person is closest to the right is being inspected. And yes, this is permissible to stop and speak to the troops and to compliment them on their turnout.
He wants to smile.
Not be able to smile. All he says, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Having a chat with one of the females in the front rank, and Corporal Benedict. The parade commander will now escort her back to the saluting dais and seek permission to carry on with the parade. A parade of this nature also calls for a lot of practice. I've often said that anytime the military goes into the public domain, that they must be spot on. You cannot afford to lose that respect. Having sought permission to carry on, Her Excellency, escorted by the Chief of Staff, her aide-de-camp, and the Commissioner of Police and his aide-de-camp now make their way into Parliament Yard, where they will be met by the newly elected President of the Senate, His Honour Sir Richard Cheltenham, QC. Chief of Staff and the Commissioner of Police, on whose shoulders the security of this country rests. Inspector Boyce behind the Commissioner of Police, and in truth, in fact, it is Captain Donville Dash, who is the ADC to the Chief of Staff. And Major Julia Dabrio. You will notice that all of them also have on their various accoutrements.
Yes.
And that is because there are, in truth, in fact, the Chief of Staff and the Commissioner, ADC to the Governor General.
I see.
That is why they wear the accoutrements over their right shoulder.
She's joined by the Chief of Protocol, Mr. Philip St. Hill. We see members of the public on the west wing of Parliament.
Just awaiting the arrival of the President of the Senate.
Yes. Having been elected, he will make his way to meet the Governor General, Her Excellency. while the guests wait. Remember, the newly elected president of the Senate is His Honor Sir Richard Cheltenham, and the deputy president of the Senate will be Mr. Richard Cappy Greenwich.
Former Minister of Economy.
So I think I mentioned earlier that Sir Theodore Brankert, he served as
Speaker.
a speaker in the House of Assembly, and also as a president of the
Of the
Senate.
Senate.
Yes. He served as a speaker from 1961 to 1966 and president of the Senate from 1974 to 1976.
Holding two of the most prestigious offices.
Yes, yes.
These are things that we ought to glorify in a sense, because these offices mean something.
Yes.
And the man on the street must not just take them
Here we
lightly.
see Minister Duguid arriving with Mrs. Duguid.
That's an enormous achievement to be the presiding officer of either house on different occasions.
Certainly.
Major achievement.
Of interest also is that
And there we see the Lieutenant Colonel Bostic, and we see Minister Sandra Husbands, we see Senator Lynette Holder,
Topping.
and we just saw Minister Kirk Humphrey. Minister Santia Bradshaw and her father, and their Minister Carrie Simmons, Senator Dr. Crystal Haynes, Senator Lisa Cummins, Senator Lucille Moe, Senator Lynette Holder, Senator Claswell Franklin, the Senator Rudy Grant,
Father
the
Elton.
chaplain of the Senate, and members of their family.
Yes. So the senators having arrived in the Senate, the next procedure now will be for the members of the House of Assembly in order of seniority
In order of seniority,
to make their way into the Senate, and then we'll have the official.
but they will have to be called to the Senate.
Yes.
Yes, and that is when Ezra will explain that wonderful. We see newly independent senators, Senator Tony Moore. The Senate itself comprises 21 members, and the members are appointed by the Prime Minister. She has 12 senators. We also have 7 appointed by the Governor General. We see there His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Clyde Maskell and his wife, and 2 by the Leader of the Opposition. The Leader of the Opposition has so far chosen Mr. Caswell Franklin.
Yeah.
1 more to come, and Senator Althea Wiggins is in England at the moment, so she will be
Sworn in at a later date.
sworn in at another time. But the senators are there. seated. Of course, we notice the paintings of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, and the Duke of Edinburgh.
Her Majesty is still our head of state.
She's still our head of state,
Yeah.
that's right. Usually there are two thrones seated at the top of the dais. However, our Governor General is single, so there is only one throne. And now here we have the Sergeant at Arms, Adrian Lovell.
With the mace on his right shoulder, leading the procession up the stairs and into Parliament.
There's the President of the Senate, His Honour Sir Richard Cheltenham,
Right.
preceding Her Excellency Dame Sandra Mason. Fanfare strikes up.
The mace carried by the marshal is a symbol of the authority of the speaker and the members of the House. And it has a very colorful history dating back to the authority of the King and Queen.
Absolutely.
The Sergeant at Arms is announcing the arrival of the Governor General, and all who are seated stand. And they will remain standing until she takes her place on the dais.
Let us pray. Guide us, Lord, in all our doings with your gracious favor, and further us with your continual help, that in all our works began, continue, and ended in you, we may glorify your holy name, and by your mercy attain everlasting life through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Let us pray for sound government. O Lord, our Governor, bless the Governor General Dame Sandra of our country, that she may be a light of peace among the people and a blessing to other nations on earth. Amen. For our Prime Minister, Mayor, and members of Cabinet, and all in the administrative authority of our country. For the members of the Senate and the House of Assembly, and those who make laws, give courage and wisdom and foresight to provide for the needs of all people and to the fulfillment of our obligation through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. For the people and the country, teach our people to rely on your strength and to accept their responsibilities to the fellow citizens, that they may elect and be trustworthy leaders through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. O God, from whom all holy desires and all just works do proceed. Give unto thy servants that peace which the world cannot give, that both our hearts be set to obey thy commandments, and also that by thee we being defended from the fear of our enemies, may pass our time in rest and quietness through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And now let us all say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. This is there our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And now let us say together the grace, and may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be upon us now and forevermore. Amen. Yeah.
So now we await Her Excellency, and she will summon the members of the lower house to the Senate chamber. And the individual who will carry her message will be the Sergeant at Arms.
Sergeant at Arms.
So everybody seated. Mr. Sergeant at Arms, will you please summon the members of the House of Assembly?
Okay. She has just asked the Sergeant at Arms to summon the members of the House of Assembly.
And having received those instructions, they're carried out accordingly.
Yes. And Mr. Aline,
Yes.
the Sergeant at Arms, will leave the Senate chamber.
I will obey the instructions.
He will obey the instructions. He will proceed to the position facing the Governor General, bow, and then he will walk over to the chamber of the lower house, where the members of the House of Assembly are assembled. And at this time, they would have elected their speaker.
This is an extraordinarily significant moment.
This is a significant moment. Tell us the significance of it.
Well, we're about to see something happen that you would find strange. If they follow the ritual, they will slam the door in his face. On this occasion,
On this occasion, the speaker exited. And now we see the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition.
that, and
he would have to knock again.
the significance of that is that the monarch and her representative are not welcome in the lower house.
No.
It's part of the significant struggle between the king and the commons.
The monarchy and, yes.
We are our bosses in this house.
Yes.
If you wish to speak to us, you summon us to your house, but you don't come here.
Yes. And remember that they're bringing this speaker forcefully to the Governor General.
Well, to the
This is the House of Assembly. They're bringing him back into the House of Assembly.
because all speakers should be reluctant to have their necks threatened based on the old historical precedent. So he sort of dragged.
He's dragged by the Honourable Prime Minister and the Honourable Leader of the Opposition back into the House of Assembly and into his seat.
Yeah. Didn't want the job. That is the
The Clerk of
constitutional
Parliament
significance.
approaches. The patient Sergeant at Arms knocks once again.
I'm sure that our viewers at home are certainly enjoying this, because this is not something that you see every day, every month, or every year.
Nor is it to be taken lightly.
That this is correct.
Looking upon me and choosing me to be Speaker of this Honourable House, I intend to preside over this House as steadfast as possible, holding all members to account and ensuring that they subscribe to the standing orders of this Honourable Chamber. I want to give that warning early, especially to the new members of this Honourable Chamber. And I intend to uphold all the traditions of this Honourable Chamber and ensure that proceedings are conducted with a high degree of civility and decorum.
Mr. Arthur Holder seems to have accepted the job. He is the Speaker-elect only at this stage because he may not be approved in the upper house. The
He
king,
has to be approved in the upper house.
yes.
I see. So he's the Speaker-elect at the moment.
Remember, traditionally, historically, he was the king's man, speaking to the king. And therefore, Her Excellency will have to approve him. It seems that Mr. Lovell has gained entrance.
Yes, he has gained entrance into the House of Assembly.
Mr. Speaker-elect, Her Excellency the Governor General commands this Honourable House in the Senate Chamber.
And
Symbol of authority.
symbol of authority, yes. Once the
If the mace
Speaker,
is not there, what happens?
Speaker has no authority. It's not a session. You can't have it.
I see.
and once the House of Assembly, that mace on
Clerks.
clerks can see it.
Yeah, right, just below the clerk. They appear to have agreed. And they're likely to be making their way to the Senate
To the
chamber.
Senate. Originally, a mace was a symbol of authority granted by or exercised on behalf of the king or the queen under a royal warrant.
It was also a weapon.
Of course, it was
Yes.
used as a weapon in case you did not pay your taxes. The marshal or the sergeant of arms would come with you and give you a few blows and tell you ought
Club
to
you.
pay.
Yeah.
Club you.
Yes.
You ought to pay your taxes.
Again, the king's man, so to speak. But
And in the background, the Speaker's chair,
Yeah.
that gift that we received for independence from India.
The throne, as it were, of the commons.
Yes.
Yeah. And here, Her Excellency waits patiently, just as
Back in the day, if the monarch was waiting for this length of time,
he would be, or the monarch would be upset.
yes,
And on
correct.
occasions, in the early days, the monarch would have left the chamber, sometimes upset.
And gone to get them or go back to the palace.
Once the balance of power shifted to the commons, he'd have to go back to his palace and wait.
I see.
Because he wants the commons to give him supply to approve his request for finance. And therefore, he couldn't run the country only on the finances of the upper house, the barons and
see.
so on. So he had to create the lower house. And the commoners said, no taxation without
representation.
In other words, we need our own house, the House of Commons, just as your peers have the House of Lords.
Right.
Ever since then, the commoners have asserted their authority.
Isn't that something similar to what Washington, D.C. says?
Yes,
Because they don't have representation?
but of course, they all followed in very many respects the Barbadian principle. I mean, it was established in the UK, but we fought for it here, 1652. And then the United States picked up our...
And remember, they will be walking, yes, in terms of seniority, but also length of service.
Speaker,
So there you see.
Prime Minister.
in order of seniority,
In order of seniority.
they make their way to the Senate chamber. Of interest is that when the House attains the Senate chamber for a sitting of Parliament, head of state, Senate, and the House of Assembly, the mace is carried before the Speaker, as we saw, and the members of the House who proceed in order of seniority of membership.
Yeah.
Mr.
And
Payne,
they should be left
Mr. Clark,
outside
Mr. Toppin,
of the Senate
PM,
chamber, covered until the
Ms.
Speaker
Ford,
and members of the House of Assembly
Mr.
leave the
Prescott,
chamber.
Mr. Marshall, Mr. Simmons, Colonel Bostick, Mr. Hinkson, Mr. Sutherland, Ms. Bradshaw, Dr. Duguid, Ms. Husbands, Mr. Abrams, Bishop Atherley, Mr. Space in the Shades, I'm sorry, Adrian Ford, Charles Griffith, John King, Mr. Phillips preceded him, Mr. Jordan, Dr. Ford, Mr. Humphrey, Miss Cattle, and we've got the chaplain of the House of Assembly, followed by the clerk, and at the very end, the chief of protocol.
Mr. Holder must shortly seek approval to become Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, His Honor.
Yes. Of course, the King has to approve his Speaker. Her Excellency has to approve Mr. Holder as Speaker of the Lower House. So, historical ritual, but exceedingly important.
Yes.
It all emphasizes the weight on his shoulders as the presiding officer. It's not a light task, presiding over the lower house, especially when you have powerful intellects paraded before the chair.
His knowledge has to be wrapped around the Constitution, also
Standing order.
standing
systems of Parliament. It's a very demanding job. Because those members who know the rules might, as in any exercise, occasionally deliberately match the crease to get their point across.
Yes.
I'll tell you about a daunting experience at another moment.
Please, Your Excellency,
Approval.
the members of the House of Assembly have chosen me to be their speaker, and I know Excellency's approval.
I approve your election as Speaker.
Your Excellency, in the name and on behalf of the members of the Assembly, I lay claim to their ancient and undoubted rights and privileges, and especially to freedom from arrest and molestation of their persons, freedom of speech and debate, and free access to Your Excellency whenever occasion may require, and that most favorable construction may be placed upon all their proceedings.
I give and grant so far as is consistent with the royal prerogative and the laws and constitution of this island, every privilege and liberty which has been enjoyed by any former assembly to be enjoyed by you as fully and freely as heretofore. Mr. President and members of the Senate, Mr. Speaker and members of the House of Assembly, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, the representatives of the House of Assembly have been elected, and the selection of the members of the Senate is complete. You have met and chosen your respective presiding officers. Parliament is now constituted, and the first session of the Honourable, the Parliament 2018 to 2023 can begin. It is now my privilege and duty to outline my government's programs for this parliamentary term. At sunrise on May the 25th, the people of Barbados welcomed a new day and a new government with renewed optimism and hope. It is in these historic chambers of the third oldest parliament of the Commonwealth that the men and women elected must join with those nominated to transform that hope into reality and a bright future for a country and a people bruised but not broken, a people who now stand ready to join hands and work at building the best Barbados together. My government commences its historic mandate at a time of unprecedented economic and social uncertainty for Barbados and its people. Our citizens are acutely aware of the enormous challenges that our country faces, which have become a part of their lived reality. A stagnant economy that has suffered multiple downgrades by international ratings agencies and is strangled by excessive taxation, unsustainably high levels of debt, inadequate foreign reserves to safeguard the value of the Barbados dollar, neglected infrastructure resulting in sick building syndrome, and decaying sewerage, water, sanitation, road, and transport systems. These challenges have been exacerbated by other factors. There has been an escalating cost of living, which makes it difficult for far too many of our citizens to have an accepted quality of life. High levels of crime and gun violence result in fear and social malaise. We have seen a loss of opportunity for our young people in an environment where fees must now be paid for tertiary education. And finally, there has been no economic empowerment for our people. Together, these factors have had a debilitating and crippling impact on our society, economy, natural and built environments, and have reversed our country's once clear and upward development trajectory. My government has identified urgent national challenges as mission-critical issues on which it must and will take immediate action to confront and resolve. This will be implemented over 6 months. Our agenda will focus on addressing all mission-critical issues. Clear timelines will be set for deciding on and applying solutions. Dedicated mission-critical teams comprising public servants and highly experienced professionals recognized nationally, regionally, and in some instances internationally will be established and tasked to ensure delivery. More important, proper management structures will be put in place to prevent these issues from reaching crisis proportions again. In parallel, my government will begin the implementation of its 5-year agenda for national transformation. Most governments come to office with 1 or 2 pressing issues requiring their immediate attention. For my government, however, some 20 mission-critical issues have been identified. In every instance, there will be severe consequences if these matters continue to be ignored or are not remedied. And therefore, we look now at the priority action, which deals with the mission-critical agenda. First, the economy. Immediately on taking office, my government began to tackle the most pressing issue before it, namely the unacceptably high national debt, level of foreign reserve, which negatively impact Barbados' macroeconomic position. After extensive consultation over the last week with the social partners, my government has started the process of restructuring Barbados' public debt and renegotiating existing obligations. In so doing, it will seek the cooperation of its domestic and external creditors and the balance payments support of the International Monetary Fund. It will continue to consult extensively with the social partners in the development of our own comprehensive Barbados economic recovery and transformation plan. This will ensure that the burden of economic adjustment is shared fairly and does not fall disproportionately onto workers. My government's macroeconomic framework is to present a balanced budget by 2019 with no new financing requirements. At all relevant stages of the process, it will act with transparency and will keep the Parliament and the citizens of Barbados fully informed. My government wishes to assure the public that our core values, intention, and approach remain as articulated throughout the recent general elections. First and foremost, my government remains committed to a fixed exchange rate and to preserving the value of the Barbados dollar. It will pursue policies to restore our foreign reserves cover to at least 15 weeks. We will do this through a variety of measures, including through the stimulation of investor confidence and by allowing Barbadians to retain foreign exchange they have earned in foreign currency accounts in Barbados. Barbadian residents will be eligible for a foreign currency tax credit on all foreign exchange earned. My government fully understands that a stable society that offers opportunity for all is created and sustained only when a country gets its economic fundamentals right. Overtaxation cannot lead to economic recovery or a return to growth, nor does it lead to individual citizens to prosperity. Accordingly, it will abolish the National Social Responsibility Levy, which will lower the cost of living and stimulate consumer spending, abolish the road tax, and replace it with a more equitable but bearable tax on petroleum products, repeal the requirement for tax clearance certificates, repeal the municipal solid waste tax, and give a tax credit over a period of time to those who paid and return the value-added tax to a rate of 15% within 18 months. My government knows the people of Barbados have high expectations of us. Even as we propose to enter into a program with the IMF, we will keep faith with our citizens, and we ask them to keep faith with us. The task ahead is not for the 30 elected or the 21 appointed, but for the 300,000 who live in Barbados and those of our citizens living in the diaspora. Working with a specialized mission-critical team, my government will take immediate action to safeguard Barbados' financial services sector, which has hitherto been a major contributor to our economy. The team's focus will be to settle the policy framework on international business by the internationally required deadline of December 2018 to ensure that Barbados is not once more unfairly blacklisted as an uncooperative jurisdiction by the OECD and the EU. Thereafter, the team will assist the government in its efforts to redefine Barbados globally as a center of excellence for certain niche sectors in international business and for potential new strategic growth areas where Barbados can develop a comparative advantage, especially as it relates to our quality of life and stability as a nation. Addressing government's arrears. Arrears to citizens, corporations, and institutions are extraordinarily high. They have caused severe cash flow problems, jeopardized the viability of businesses and institutions, and created hardships for individuals. My government has been briefed on the alarming level of accumulated arrears it has inherited, which total at least $1.7 billion as of September 30th, 2017. This includes refunds of income tax, VAT, and NIS, as well as sums outstanding to UCAL, the UWI, the sugar industry, and other suppliers of goods and services. This is unacceptable to my government. While there can be no overnight solution given the magnitude of the problem, my government commits to assigning a dedicated team to work with affected individuals and companies on a feasible plan for settling government's current indebtedness. We will thereafter work to establish a structure for regular on-time payment of money owed by government to citizens and corporations. When the system is established and functioning well, government will be required to pay interest or penalties for late payments. We now look at improving infrastructure. The catastrophic failure of the South Coast sewage plant poses a significant threat to the health of Barbadians and visitors, to the environment and nearshore ecosystems, and to the economy as a whole. My government has declared the matter a national emergency. My government is taking urgent action to alleviate the problem while developing a plan for its definitive long-term resolution. We will utilize the best local and international expertise we can access. A dedicated team is already at work and has started to present its advice and recommendations to the Cabinet. Discussions are also underway to source funding and technical support for this emergency project. Attention is also being turned to the aging Bridgetown plant. Diversion of waste from the South Coast has placed additional pressure on this plant. Urgent, preemptive, and longer-term action is now needed to avert a similar occurrence in our capital city. Barbados's debt to international creditors is extraordinarily high and unsustainable. It has brought our economy close to collapse. My government will reprofile our national debt, and along with other sources of funding and savings, my government will use the fiscal space achieved through debt reprofiling to finance other mission-critical areas. These include providing an adequate number of buses to meet the transportation needs of the Barbadian public and an adequate fleet of trucks to ensure a regular and efficient garbage collection service, expanding the accident and emergency department at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, extending the opening hours at 2 polyclinics. My government will eliminate the tipping fee for solid waste disposal, which has contributed to a significant rise in illegal dumping, and will promote national cleanup and beautification programs to return order and cleanliness once again to the Barbadian landscape. Additionally, my government will immediately utilize existing and procure additional funding and equipment to carry out a costed road repair and rebuilding program. We will start with Barbados's most heavily trafficked roads, and it will comprehensively tackle the persistent problem of access to and availability of running water, particularly in communities in the northern and eastern parishes of Barbados. We will ensure that the Barbados Water Authority assists householders in the purchase and installation of water tanks to allow for greater resilience at the household level. My government will transition to renewable energy and backup power at all pumping stations and reservoirs to provide continued service during natural disasters and other emergencies. The harsh economic times which Barbadians have endured have severely impacted every household in Barbados. In the strong conviction that all Barbadians must be able to support their families and live with dignity, my government will, during this term, provide a cost of living allowance to civil servants if negotiations on salaries and benefits are not concluded with the trade unions within the next 3 months. Raise the non-contributory pension from $155 to $225 per week, payable every fortnight, while maintaining the relativity between contributory and non-contributory pensions. Raise the minimum wage from $6.25 to $8 and extend it to all categories of workers across the economy. Reduce the number of homes being foreclosed on by working with the banks to establish a troubled mortgage relief program. Pay the reverse tax credit of $1,300 for those earning less than $18,000. Eliminate the 5,000 pit toilets still remaining across Barbados through a program of works carried out via contracts to small contractors and community-based businesses. Increase funeral grants by $500. Give priority in the government's budget to the purchase of goods and services from small businesses, those run by economically disadvantaged or community-owned groups and young people, and establish a social safety net for families by ensuring a minimum household income below which no Barbadian family should fall. This will be accomplished by coordinating payments of the minimum wage, reverse tax credit, and welfare benefits, as well as by the use of other policies and instruments. We look now at the issue of empowering our youth. My government is committed to safeguarding our future generations and empowering them to have the best quality of life our country can give them. From the next semester in 2018, therefore, it will pay the tuition fees for Barbadians to attend the University of the West Indies. In addition, it will create a national first job program for youth between the ages of 16 and 25 to gain a government-subsidized placement at a business in their field of interest. Develop a national apprenticeship program in which training of young people can be accelerated and supported, and introduce a national mentorship program through which adults and professionals will be invited to help to guide young people. Convene an emergency session of professionals dealing with the welfare of children to agree on an immediate plan of action to end the current epidemic of violence and bullying in schools, including through increasing the number of guidance counselors and social workers, introducing anger management and conflict resolutions in schools by September 2018, and engaging civil society and faith-based organizations in support of these school programs. The government will also ensure a reliable and timely school bus service, and from September 2018, it will deploy safety officers, where necessary, on buses and at places where students and young people congregate in large numbers. Keeping Barbadians safe. My government shares the concern of its citizens at the increased levels of crime and insecurity in Barbados, but is confident that with proactive policing and targeted community outreach policies, the trend can be effectively reversed. Once the Supreme Court building is returned to full operation, my government will prioritize the appointment of 3 additional High Court judges to address the backlog of serious criminal cases and to provide a framework for the prompt delivery of justice. My government will work to boost the morale of the Royal Barbados Police Force by ensuring that the matter of appointments and promotions is managed with transparency, fairness, and expedition. We will also free police officers from carrying out non-law enforcement and administrative duties to enable them to better focus on policing, and will encourage greater emphasis on community-based policing. Steps will be taken to make communities safer through debushing and the enhanced provision of street lighting. In addition, my government will encourage a close partnership among the church, community groups, and government agencies responsible for social services to reduce gun violence and support safe communities. It will offer a 6-month gun amnesty and buyback program for legal and illegal firearms to reduce their numbers in the hands of civilians and in communities. After a period of public education, debate, and consultation, my government will hold a referendum on the decriminalization of recreational marijuana. In the interim, however, we will follow the science to accept the benefits of medical marijuana in treating a multiplicity of complaints. We will regulate to facilitate its availability to those in need. Stamping out corruption. Corruption is a stain on any society and a significant drain on government revenues and the economy as a whole. My government is determined that it will not allow corruption to become endemic in Barbados. As part of its zero-tolerance policy, it will move swiftly to fight and punish corruption in whatever quarter it has manifested itself or continues to do so. In furtherance of that objective, my government will immediately introduce into this Parliament comprehensive integrity legislation, which will hold ministers and board chairpersons and deputy chairpersons accountable for their actions, require politicians and key public officials to disclose their assets and liabilities, and provide stiff penalties for those who attempt to bribe politicians and public officials. The sugar industry and its workers. Even though sugar is no longer Barbados' main source of foreign exchange, my government recognizes the important role it continues to play in the maintenance of our rural communities, our environment, and our economy. It therefore commits to resolving the outstanding money of the monies owing to sugar farmers. It also commits to meeting urgently with all relevant stakeholders to agree on a plan for revitalizing the sugarcane industry and increasing the value added from products such as specialty sugars and molasses. Preparing for national disasters. Recent extreme weather events in the Caribbean require of my government serious, strategic, and preemptive action. Accordingly, my government will ensure that it works to place the Department of Emergency Management in an appropriately equipped building capable of withstanding a hurricane of Category 5 strength. My government will also work with the insurance industry to develop a publicly supported catastrophe and insurance product for chattel houses valued at $125,000 and under. Institute a 2018 rapid roof replacement program to support owners replacing non-hurricane resistant roofs and carrying out other hurricane-proof of their homes. Policy and preparation for the upcoming hurricane season will go beyond supporting the efforts of our citizens. My government will develop a national storage capacity of generators, water, food, and medicine to last 7 days, upgrade hurricane shelters so they can resist the Category 5 hurricane, and require and facilitate farmers and owners of large parcels of land to clean their lands and clear drains and wells to allow freer water runoff during and after heavy rains. Pardon me a moment. No, I don't want what I want in the bag. Oh, okay. Thank you. Our regional commitments. My government continues to believe that Barbados has a unique role to play in the revitalization of the regional integration movement, particularly through its lead responsibility for the CARICOM single market and economy. Accordingly, it will, as an early priority, reassert its assigned leadership role and work with member states to complete the built-in agenda of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas so as to enable Barbadians to fully benefit from the opportunity to move themselves and their capital within the region. We will also work with other member states to rapidly advance the built-in agenda, especially to provide certainty as to the scope of rights to be enjoyed by persons moving within the region. My government recognizes the daily movement with our brothers and sisters in the Eastern Caribbean continues to increase. We have similar challenges. Equally, my government recognizes that the only region in the world with whom Barbados has a trade surplus is the region of the Eastern Caribbean. Given these realities, we will also seek to strengthen collaborative relations with the countries of the OECS. As a major shareholder in LIAT, my government will continue to work with the other shareholding countries in our ongoing efforts to confront the challenges faced by LIAT and to enhance LIAT's operations and the profitability so as to maintain reliable and affordable movement within our region for our people. Strategic action, the 5-year transformational agenda. My government accepts that it must attend as first priority to those mission-critical issues I have just outlined. However, it considers it equally essential that it begins simultaneously to design and execute the kind of transformational policies in those new and dynamic areas which can create the platform for sustained economic growth into the future and lasting prosperity for our citizens. My government has determined that the tax and spend tools of the past 52 years can no longer deliver for our modern Barbados. In this 5-year term, it will therefore begin the process of deconstructing what government does and reconstructing it to better fit the country's needs and today's technologies. Other tools, including legislation, regulation, facilitation, investment, and empowerment, will be brought to the fore as my government works to reclaim Barbados's economic independence. My government will confront unemployment and underemployment and build a more prosperous society characterized by high skills and entrepreneurship in which all of our people are given the tools to build wealth, well-being, and security. Existing sectors will be modernized and new economic sectors created. Our growth must be led by our people, and our concept of who constitutes the private sector must change from vendors to public-owned enterprises. In this regard, my government has set out several new avenues for every Barbadian to build and share capital so as to maximize income earning potential, stimulate economic activity, and increase the penetration of the Barbados brand into the Caribbean and global markets. We are committed to no household, but an entrepreneur in every home. To reach the goal, we will pursue a number of policies. These include trust loans. My government will take a chance on ordinary Barbadians, especially those left behind by the policies of traditional financial institutions, by providing $10 million per year for each of the next 5 years to seed a trust loans fund to give small businesses or businesses owners security-free loans of up to $5,000 each. When this loan sum is paid in full and the borrower has built a good credit profile, the business owner will become entitled to a loan of up to $10,000. There is also the Prime Minister's Innovation Award, which will be given quarterly. The prizes will be worth $250,000 each and are intended to spark new ideas, innovations, and new business. These prizes will allow Barbadian innovators, particularly those without access to funding, to generate new wealth, jobs, and bring foreign exchange into the economy. The Youth Innovation Award, worth $150,000 of prize money, will be open to all youth. When won by school students, the prize will be allocated between the winning school, the teacher, and the students. Making all Barbadians investment promoters. My government will encourage all Barbadians to promote new investments in Barbados and to qualify for a preset introduction and success fee if the investment takes off. For this purpose, and in the interest of transparency and anti-corruption, a register of promotions and promoters will be established. The government's aim is to widen the scope for all Barbadians and to act against corrupt practices in the promotion of investments by people who may have special access to government ministers, board chairmen, and senior public servants. The Barbados Sovereign Wealth Fund. My government will create a Barbados Sovereign Wealth Fund to ensure national wealth is available for present and future generations of Barbados. The fund will hold government assets, including real property on and offshore, and non-tangible assets such as trademarks, patents, and intellectual property. The fund will ensure appropriate from these assets. Revenues of petroleum products will flow to the fund to ensure oil and gas earnings are not squandered, but become a source of funding for Barbados's long-term development. After its establishment, every Barbadian, upon turning 18, will become entitled to a stake in the fund. Over time, this stake will produce an income or could be used as collateral for loans for housing, education, and other specified purposes. Access to capital. My government will introduce a range of new instruments to ensure Barbadians have access to money. Crowdfunding and the strengthening of the junior capital markets are but two examples. Through these and several other initiatives, including the strategic use of procurement policy to create wealth for young people, small businesses, and disadvantaged groups, giving new impetus to the creative economy with a 52-week calendar of festivals and the acquiring of geographic markers for Barbadian rum, black belly sheep, and cotton. My government will place capital in the hands of Barbadians. It will therefore ensure that Barbadians are equipped to manage capital and savings. It will amend the school curriculum to teach every Barbadian young person about money management and investing in order to encourage a more financially independent Barbadian. It will also establish regional advisory bureaus to assist Barbadians in their financial literacy and commercial decision-making. This will strengthen small businesses by teaching them how to source, compete for, and successfully negotiate government contracts under new procurement legislation that will recognize the need for affirmative action. Creating new frontiers of economic development. My government has identified the green and blue economies as areas in which new policy directions can redound to the benefit of Barbados's long-term economic, social, and environmental development. In 2007, it was a Barbados Labour Party government that rolled out the first national green economy policy in the Americas and one of the first in the world. My government remains committed to a green economy as part of Barbados's wider approach to reducing our carbon footprint and our mitigation and adaptation strategies to the threat that climate change poses to our sustainable development. Accordingly, the government will put policies in place to help Barbados transition by 2030 to the first 100% green and carbon neutral island state in the world. These policies will include requiring all government vehicles and street lighting to run on clean energy by 2025, granting duty-free concessions to PSV operators to import vehicles powered by alternative energy sources, incentivizing the use of green energy by commercial properties within the time frame to meet national deadlines, incentivizing the use of clean energy vehicles by businesses and individuals, introducing grid tier and or off-grid standalone renewables energy systems at public schools and shelters to mitigate the effects of disasters due to climate change, and utilizing a research and development program framework that allows for domestic innovation of renewable technologies. My government's policy to power Barbados from renewable sources will not only create new, highly paid jobs and decent work, but will have the added benefit of reducing foreign exchange spending on fossil fuels. The maritime space over which Barbados now has jurisdiction is 400 times greater than that of our land space. There are exciting, untapped possibilities for the sustainable exploitation of our marine environment. For this reason, my government has established a new Ministry of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy. The ministry will be charged with responsibility for preserving Barbados's coastlines, our marine environment, the health of our reefs, and the habitats of our marine plants and animals. It will ensure sustainable use and development of our fisheries, our marine assets, resources, minerals, and species for sustainable recreation and decent livelihoods for those who make a living from the sea. My government recognizes its responsibility to Barbadians yet unborn. As its Pay Forward project, my government will extensively restore our coral reefs and build new ones to increase the habitats of marine species, protect our coastlines, and provide for increased and improved snorkeling, dive sites, and fishing. It will create new marine conservation areas to the west and north of the island, declare Carlisle Bay a marine protected area, and rationalize the legislation governing marine protected areas. My government will capitalize on our large coastline and our geographical location by training nationals in a range of maritime, technical, and specialist skills in seafaring, yachting, boating, fishing, sailmaking, navigating, and the full suite of nautical and marine services. It will transform Barbados' ship registry to provide a greater contribution to our international business sector. It will take the fishing industry to the next level of development by establishing more berths for fishing vessels at the Bridgetown Fisheries Complex, broadening the ownership of fishing vessels through rent-to-own mechanisms, and upgrading our fish markets to world-class facilities that meet international phytosanitary standards. My government will also provide the necessary regulatory and fiscal environment to promote the creation of a small number of new islands and peninsulas off the west and south coast of Barbados through the reclamation of land over the next decade. This will result in new tourism, economic and cultural hubs, and hundreds of jobs. An environmental scoping study will first be done to determine its feasibility. An appropriate social impact study will also be required. Policy and legislation will be put in place to ensure that Barbadians maintain the freedom of this new land space while providing 99-year commercial leases to those investing. My government will create new high-quality jobs and encourage new activity and investment by establishing 6 special economic zones. It will move immediately to make Heritage Bridgetown a smart and creative city and put in place all that is required to facilitate its conversion. This will be a precursor to Barbados becoming a smart country. It will also designate and promote Speightstown as a heritage, artistic, and culinary center, Whole Town as a tourism and entertainment center, St. Lawrence Gap as an entertainment district, Oistins as the epicenter of Barbados' fishing industry, and 6 Roads as the premier industrial corridor. It will pursue wider tourism activities in education, health, and sports tourism that can be developed in the center and east of the island from St. Lucie to St. Philip. Harnessing technology for economic development. An essential component of our future economy will be Barbadians exporting professional services to the world down a high-speed internet connection. My government will embrace the digital economy and lead the transformation by providing all Barbadians with a digital ID, facilitating the creation of free basic Wi-Fi across the island as a means of powering the new national digital economy. smart cities, and a smart Barbados. This will be an enabler for growth, connectivity, innovation, and fully integrated platforms for social and economic activity. It will also digitize the Barbados dollar in order to allow Barbadians to conduct their business using existing or digital methods, making payments quicker and cheaper. My government will work with the private sector to create an innovation hub around the Cave Hill campus of the UWI, housing global research and technology companies. It will follow the example of best practice, such as Scotland's CivTech program. It will prioritize the effective use of technology within the public service to increase accountability and eliminate unnecessary duplication, bureaucracy, wastage, and corruption. It will create a centralized digital services committee to play the lead role in delivering people-centric public services and to coordinate and rationalize several existing units, such as the data processing department, e-government unit, e-commerce unit, telecommunications unit, and the many ICT units of individual ministries, departments, and agencies. My government will use technology to improve the quality and speed of the delivery of a wide range of higher demand government services and to facilitate online payments for their provision. It will support and leverage new technologies such as blockchain, wherever such technologies have the proven ability to boost foreign reserves, democratize the economy, create economic empowerment for Barbadians, and build wealth. It will also consider the capacity of this and other nascent technologies to mitigate the impact on economic activity of the termination of correspondent banking relationships between international banks and indigenous Caribbean banks. My government will also develop a sandbox regime for regulation. This will facilitate fintech startups and other innovators while not exposing our mainstream financial sector. Realizing the potential of the creative economy. My government will create a new model for culture and the creative industries in Barbados, commencing with the transformation of the National Cultural Foundation, the Cropover Festival, and NIFCA. It will evolve the Barbados Cultural Industries Development Authority to become one that nurtures, showcases, markets, and exports the products of Barbadian creative professionals to the world. It will facilitate the production and promotion of a 52-week calendar for the arts, entertainment, and sports, including at least one world-class festival every 2 months. My government will re-establish a national school for dance with an adjunct national dance company, as well as a national school for the performing arts, similarly with a national performing arts company. It will resource the National Film Commission to play a leading role in repositioning Barbados as a welcoming jurisdiction for film and video productions and strategic co-productions, as well as supporting the further development of an indigenous film industry. And it will bring true life to a national art gallery that acquires, houses, protects, and displays important works by Barbadians and provides workspace for collaborative activities. Prioritizing wellness. Non-communicable diseases are the major cause of death and disability in Barbados and consume approximately 70% of the budgets of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and the Barbados Drug Service. My government will shift the emphasis of our healthcare system to prevention and the promotion of wellness. It will target chronic non-communicable diseases by encouraging and incentivizing Barbadians to take greater responsibility for their own health. This will be accomplished through the provision of Health is Wealth grants to those who change their lifestyle and through exercise and improved diets, reduce the severity of their chronic disease, and reduce their need for expensive drug therapies and surgery. The government will work with doctors, dietitians, and other healthcare professionals to establish appropriate objective criteria for qualification for the grant. In addition, my government will work to make healthy foods and essential items more affordable for Barbadians by exempting a basket of goods, food, and medication from VAT. It will embed healthy lifestyles in schools, communities, and the education system by fusing the production of fruit, vegetables, and healthy produce with some aspects of the school meals program. We now look at education for development. At the core of government's development model is its commitment to and its reform of Barbados' system of education and training. That system has focused heavily on academic-based learning that does not adequately take into account the multiple ways or various stages at which children and young people learn and grow. My government will resume the diagnostic approach to allow it to effectively assess the learning capacity of each child, because each child matters. All children will be given the opportunity to excel at academics, if that is their choice. For those who are not academically inclined, more flexible teaching and learning systems will be put in place. Secondary schools will become centers of excellence for both traditional disciplines, including the arts and sciences, and technical and creative disciplines. This will give students genuine and beneficial choices and wider career options, and remove any sense of failure attached to pursuing a non-academic path. In addition, my government will develop a secondary school as a specialist sports center with strong emphasis on training a cadre of world-class coaches, athletes, and sports professionals. My government will ensure that over the next decade, all Barbadian youth will become multi-skilled and excel at home and abroad. It will provide every young person the opportunity to speak a second language, learn to swim, learn basic first aid, take part in a sport at a competitive level, engage in art, music, and other creative disciplines, travel to a foreign country, and be exposed to entrepreneurial training, including financial literacy. Opportunities for technical specialization. My government will create a number of posts classified as master teacher and senior specialist nurse as a reward for the attainment of excellence in these professions. Good teachers and nurses will no longer have to be promoted into administration and out of teaching and nursing in order to receive a better salary. Nurses and teachers are only two of the categories of civil servants affected by the absence of technical promotion streams in their field. My government will review all affected areas in an attempt to keep our other technocrats in their fields of specialization and strengthen delivery in the civil service. Bringing governance into the 21st century. My government will pursue a shift from a legal and justice system with a focus on rehabilitation and restoration for minor and victimless offenses. It will undertake a comprehensive reform of our criminal justice system. The welfare of the children, family, and entrusted our citizens and communities to fairness and deepen democracy. Its vision for Barbados includes Mr. Speaker.
The Speaker of the House